But Webb was back in Australia with England the following summer, taking everything that the Wallabies could throw at him. That, though, was to be his last tour for 3 years. He yielded the number 15 jersey to Simon Hodgkinson when exams forced him to miss the Romania match at the end of '89, and then had to sit on the sidelines as Hodgkinson and England prospered. Cold-shouldered by England, under pressure at work, he was even snubbed by the Southwest, and when running in tries for Bristol lost its appeal, he decided to retire.
It was fantastic. As soon as I made the decision, it was a horrible decision to make, but once I'd made it, I felt fantastic. It really was a weight off my shoulder. I thought, great, I don't have to play anymore. When it got to that stage where I sort of said to myself, oh, I've got to carry on playing, which isn't, you know, you only play because you want to.
And yet, what, less than a month later, you were back playing?
Well, yeah. I mean, having said that, I felt fantastic at the end of that. I did, and I was able to sit back, and my wife and I had long chats about it, and we talked about what I wanted to do, and she basically didn't want a grumpy 35-year-old, so looking back and saying, I wish I'd carried on and I wish I'd done a bit more.
I think I must have been stupid now, looking back at it, but no, I'm so glad we did. It was the right decision looking back, but at the time, I didn't know whether it was the right decision. He was at a real low, and I thought if he'd given up playing rugby then, his memories of the game would have been sad ones.
I felt that I hadn't proved myself at the international level, that I hadn't done what I wanted to do, and she said, well, look, give it one more shot. If it doesn't come off, fine, you can kind of retire happy, but if it does, then you may get some more enjoyment from something you've had a lot of enjoyment before.
Webb, though, chose not to go back to Bristol, but to start afresh down the road at Bath. An extraordinary decision, considering there were already 2 full-backs at the Rec, with Audley Lumsden at the peak of his form. But Bath were and are winners. A club with a proven recipe for success, whose coaches at the time, Tom Hudson, Jack Rowell and Dave Robson, had the reputation for bringing out the best in every player.
The club setup is fantastic, and really in the first few training sessions I got more coaching for me, and not about the team or anything, just, Tom Hudson took me aside and said, right, I don't think you're very good at this, and we just for half an hour practiced me falling on rolling balls and chipping ahead, and just doing personal skills which I'd never done before. And I remember coming back and I was knackered, but just saying, this is fantastic, somebody's actually coaching me rather than expecting me to sort of, at Bristol I'd felt I'd got to the stage where they said, right, you've got to win us the game, John, rightly or wrongly, but that's how it felt sometimes.
Everyone was delighted to see him, but just watching him practice, and his mind wasn't there and he couldn't put the game together. And I always remember him playing for our Spartans, which is our 3rd team. At half-time, he went across to David Trick, who was also rehabilitating at the time on the right wing. He said, Tricky, he said, I'm playing extremely badly. And Tricky, who was a Christian, nevertheless said, John, that's an understatement. And having got to that level, he went up thereafter. And I think he got caught up in the enthusiasm. A lot of good players. There's a lot of peer pressure here, constructive peer pressure. And got his game together, put the extra in, which he needed to. And he's gone from strength to strength and done magnificent things for England and, very importantly, for this club.
Bath and John Webb were instantly good for each other. Webb had the freedom to indulge his natural inclination as an attacking fullback. And he had the encouragement to work on his weaknesses.
Okay, right, so we're going back, we're walking into it, concentrating on the spot, straight through the uprights.
Those sessions in the February frost bearing fruit in the Fijian sunshine, as Webb proved to England that the new model had the skill and the temperament to kick goals with the consistency required at international level.
I definitely improved in every way, I think. I think he used to get very anxious before games. And we used to see him walking down by the river, and he was very analytical, which is great, but I think when Simon came in and played and Jonathan went away and obviously had a few great chats with Amanda and came back, he seems far more relaxed, far more confident, and he's certainly played some great rugby since he's been back.
After his recall in summer 1991, Webb enjoyed a golden year for England, slotting back into the team in time for the World Cup and bringing with him a reassuring presence of calmness, composure and solidity.
Very unflappable sort of character. You know, sometimes he's so laid back, he's almost horizontal, people say, but I think that's important in a fullback. You know, you have to look cool. You've got to give the rest of your players confidence and appear calm in all these situations. And he does that remarkably well. Some people I know have criticised sometimes that he looks, you know, completely switched off, but I've never thought that of him. I just think he's got that nice composure when he's really on top of his game.
You always seem very calm and composed. Is that how you are?
No. People say that, and they say, oh, you know, you took that kick and you look really relaxed, but I'm just as nervous as I ever was at my first international. I think I'm just a bit better at sort of knowing that I'm nervous and controlling it and being able to still do the same things that you should do in practice. But no, the heart's going just as fast underneath.
The pressure cooker intensity of the World Cup brought out the best in John Webb. Tigerish in defence against the All Blacks, he was coolness personified in the quarter-final mayhem in Paris. And as England won in Scotland to reach the final, Webb was actually enjoying the intensity of the whole experience.
It was amazing. It was 5 weeks that just, your whole life just stopped. And looking back on it, it's almost like a sort of time warp. That just suddenly you were taken out and you were put into a permanent rugby camp. And for 5 weeks we did nothing except eat, breathe and sleep rugby.
A World Cup final at Twickenham, the high point of any sporting career. 56,000 fans in the ground, millions more watching on television. For Webb and England, though, it was a question of so near, yet so far. Webb's 2 penalty goals may have kept England in touch with the rampant Australians, but when referee Derek Bevan finally signalled the end of the contest, it was to be joy for Australia and despair for England. And that was a feeling that took some getting used to.
It's difficult to say. I mean, every player, it was a personal thing in that we didn't really discuss much. I certainly didn't with any of the other guys, how you felt. You know, we each had our own ambitions and wanted to win, and it was a big disappointment.
And yet England went on to win a second Grand Slam, and you went on to break all records.
That's right. I mean, who's to know that if we'd won the World Cup, we might not have won the Five Nations afterwards. You learn by your mistakes. You get stronger through errors and through sort of failure. And I think we played better in the Five Nations, not necessarily because of losing the final, but certainly that was a direct result, I think.